Good afternoon, everybody. Here is today's topic and the much delayed follow-up to how do we become who we are. Well, let's look at today, who are we? What is the nature of our actual identity? Are you what other people think you are? Are you your behavior? Are you your interests? Are you your experiences? Are you your favorite color? Are you your adult bedroom time preferences? Who are you? Well, there's a lot of philosophy that dives heavily into this, and it gets pretty heavy and pretty deep pretty quickly. But I promise you that if you're a teenager, let's say you're like somewhere between 17 and 19 years old, you're a little autistic, you're socially inept, you get sucked into one of these dark corners of the internet like Tumblr or something, and people start trying to convince you that the whole reason you feel aloof and confused is because in reality you're not what you thought you were, you're not a boy at all, you're a girl, or some crazy shit like that. Putting on makeup, painting your nails, and wearing a skirt does not create an identity, and I promise you that it has nothing to do with your identity. We could come over and just ask the simple question: if you were to take the head off of a human being and you have a body and you have a head, is that person their head or is that person their body? Is it a person who's lost their body, or is it a body that's lost their head? Where is the person located in that equation? Well, if you're an atheist, you have to go with the head, because there's where the brain is, and the brain is where you do all your thinking. That's where all the chemical processes occur that allow for your thoughts to promulgate, and your think therefore you are, your consciousness, your id, it's all in the head. Likewise, I don't think that people of faith, people in religion, would beg to differ all that much. Theoretically, if you had a brain in a jar that was capable of thinking, and you had a body on life support that was kept alive since it lacked the brain to do all of its functions for it, one of those things is going to have thoughts and be able to be ministered to or interacted with, and the other one, I guess you could go up to the body and stab it and it might twitch or whatever, but it doesn't have its entire nervous system, so it's never going to be anything in and of itself. It's devoid of any kind of character other than its meat that's being kept alive. So anything you do to your body, like getting piercings, cosmetic surgery, popping hormones, dressing a certain way, etc., cannot be your identity. You can modify your body to your own whims for your own reasons, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still your body. And the nature of your body doesn't change just because you dress it up or present it some way rather than another. No. Who you are, your identity has to be in your mind. So, okay, what about your mannerisms? Alright, like your body language, like do you frolic around like a ponce? Or do you square up your back? Get good body posture, puff that chest out, suck your gut in. Do either of those things make up your identity? I'm not so sure. I have no doubt, even though they'd probably want to hide this for very obvious reasons, that there were rather fruity and flamboyant Ponzi members of the SS back in the 1930s and 1940s in Germany. They'd want to keep that shit to themselves because there was a place you would go if they found out about that, and it isn't a good place. But I have no doubt that there were people that believed with all of their heart that a certain Austrian art enthusiast who wore a specific mustache was a great guy, but they also happened to be absolute Fruit Loops. So it can't be that your sexuality or your mannerisms are anything to do with who you are. It can't be your identity. There are Christians who like death metal. They believe absolutely that Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior, that Christ is King, and that their eternal salvation is only through repentance and through acceptance of Christ. And they totally blast Slayer and Cannibal Corpse, and they love it. So I don't think your preferences can count as an ultimate factor of your identity. So let's go over then and look at some of these examples, and let's look at the other side of the coin. You're a radical ideologue. You're a diehard Marxist. You're a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. Or you happen to be super enthusiastic and as a hobby collect numerous memorabilia and have read Mein Kampf cover to cover and it's your favorite book. Okay, you're like that. Okay, and you really think that Austrian painter with the funny mustache from the 1930s and 40s in Germany was really onto something, that for whatever reason you think that's a great thing. I don't know why you would think that, but let's say you do. Or again, you're a diehard Christian and you spiritually have invested yourself wholly in the church. These are tenets of your beliefs. Is that belief your identity? Is that what you should identify as? When people ask you, how do you identify? Is that it? I'm not so sure. Because at the end of the day, do you put forth your personal preferences or do you put forth your ideology? Will you drop the death metal if your church tells you to? Will you stop getting railed by 8 guys and letting them pee in your gaping orifice if your skinhead buddies tell you have to? Which do you put first? And if you put one thing or the other first, your ideology or your personal preferences, are either of those things your identity? I don't think they are. So we're trying to narrow down, who are you? Who are you? Not what do you do, not what do you look like, not what are you into. Who are you? Who are you? And I don't think enough people are asking this question. And I don't really think that there's ultimately going to be a ready, simple answer to this question. I'm not telling you this because I'm about to bust out plain and simply, you're blank. I can't tell you who you are. Most people can't even tell themselves who they are. So you want a stranger to tell you who you are when you can't even say who you are? Who the hell is actually getting to the bottom of who we are? Who the hell is in charge of determining what my identity is? Who's holding on to these answers? And are they being kept from us on purpose, or are we just lazy? And even if we weren't lazy and we worked day and night to try to answer this question, who the hell am I? Would we find out? Now there's an interesting question. Can you work hard enough and in a lifetime, one human lifetime, ultimately ascertain that there is a one-sentence response that covers who you are when people ask, well, who are you? How do you identify? Well, is there a right answer? I think there is. Is there a wrong answer? There's more wrong answers than there are right answers. When somebody asks you, how do you identify? If you answer, I identify, you look down at your clothes as a square, I'm a square, or I identify as an Odin worshiper, or I identify as a construction worker. Well, you're just telling them things about what you do. You're not telling them anything about who you are. If you told everybody a complete list of all of the things you're about and not about, if you told somebody a list of all the things you're interested in and hobbies that you promulgate, if you told everybody a list that's comprehensive and deep of your values and things that you think matter and that are significant in your life, would you have somewhere in there answered the question of what your actual identity is? Can you answer that? I don't think many people can. And I think a lot of the people that do answer that aren't necessarily correct or accurate. You see, part of the human condition is that, unlike everything else on this planet, we were stuck coming into existence being aware that we exist. Now, there are birds, there are hominids like monkeys and baboons and gorillas, there's fish in the ocean, there's mammals in the ocean like dolphins and whales and shit, there's insects, there's fungi, there's plants, there's reptiles, tortoises are probably more intelligent than lizards, for example. You got large mammals like horses and things on 4 legs, bears, horses, giraffes, freaking, stuff, lions, wolves. You got smaller stuff, and things vary in brain size. And I'm not saying these animals don't have some degree of general intelligence, but would be on the hook to have to prove that these things have some conscientious awareness that they're alive, and that somehow or another their brains can fathom the notion that one day, sooner or later, they won't be alive no more and they will cease to exist on this plane of existence anyway. I mean, we're not going to get into the esoteric nature of the afterlife and do you have a soul. That's an entire other thing. But one thing we all know for a fact that humans have that every other entity on this planet don't seem to have, it's consciousness, which, simply put, is the awareness that you exist. You began existing at one point. At one point in the future, sooner or later, you're going to cease to exist, at least in the sense that you're alive. And there's no definable reason why it had to be you that came into existence. Like, when your parents went down to the bone zone together and got busy, and your mom got pregnant, why was it you? Do you realize how many, millions of eggs she has up inside of her situation? Do you realize how many sperm cells there were in your dad's situation issuing forth into your mom's situation? Why was it you? Why not somebody else? There's a million different variables that could have resulted in the act of copulation that your parents engaged in that would have led to any other entity being born than you. And yet here you are, watching this. You are a singular event. Somehow, of all of the other, I don't even know how many billions of outcomes that could have been expressed from the function of your parents plowing, you came into existence. The odds are astronomical. I mean, you could make an argument that it was predetermined to happen because whatever, religion or something. You could go the atheist route and say it was just random dumb luck. Either way, out of the billions of outcomes, you came here. You're here. You exist now. And there will come a time, on the cosmic scale of things, almost instantly, you will also cease to exist. Be it by misfortune, old age, disease, incident, whatever. You'll be gone. You're only here for a little while, then you're gone. And you're special, not because you came into existence other than other things, like it just happened to be you. That's not what makes you special. What makes you special is that you're capable. I don't know. A lot of you guys don't even take the brain space to think about this shit. You're asleep at the wheel in your own life. You're stupid, not because you're something you can't help. It's just you're lazy. You're mentally lazy. You don't think. You should stop that shit and wake up and pay attention. You have the ability to be aware that you exist. You have the ability to ponder the reality that soon, whether it be 5 minutes or 500 years, you will cease to exist. That is special. That is something all the life around you on this planet doesn't have. And if you think that something that special hinges upon something as retarded as you wearing a fucking skirt and painting your nails, male or female, by the way, because women, they invest themselves heavily in their physical appearance, and a lot of men who like other men do the same shit. They're equally cosmetically fastidious and weird about it. You guys focus on all the wrong shit. You think somehow or another what orifices you put things into and what you put into them, and whether that be something sexual or food related, even the food you eat, what music you listen to, what clothes you wear, what hobbies you promulgate, and what you vote for. You think all of this somehow or another is what's important, but I'm trying to explain something to you here. I didn't make this video to give you some grandiloquent and simple answer as to who you really are. I gave you a prompt that you could use to start reevaluating your life and start asking yourself some actually useful questions. And for the first time in your life, find a use for your brain other than just keeping your head from caving in, and really start to think about what really matters. We're coming in the summer. A lot of people, they do the Pride Month thing, and it's the dumbest shit in the history of mankind. Nobody gives a fuck who you're in love with. That's between you and your partner. Keep it off the streets. So help me God, it's Florida, FAFO. You need to be spending this time thinking about who you actually are. Because as long as you don't have any idea who you are, as long as you aren't doing to work to define who you are, you're just leaving the door wide open for everybody in your around you and everybody in your life to do all your thinking for you, make all your decisions for you, and decide for you who you are. And if you're letting other people decide for you who you are, there's one thing that I can promise you you aren't, and that's your own person. You are literally at that point a slave to society, and your identity are chains of captivity, and you belong to everything but yourself. You are owned, and it's not fun, and it's the real enslavement, the honest to God victimhood that you claim to have. It's like if you're a victim of anything, it's just not doing your own work to work on yourself and identify yourself and become who you are. And if you do let other people define your identity for you, then you have no worth other than the worth that is given to you. And when all the worth you have is the worth that is assigned to you, it's a matter of a snap of a finger for somebody to take that worth away from you, and you can just become worthless again in the blink of an eye, and there's nothing you can do about it. So if you can become worthless as quick as you can gain worth, then you have no worth, do you? You're worthless. You might as well not even continue living. Why don't you just go die about it? Why don't you made yourself? If you get that Canadian reference. I don't want you to think that way. I just want you to think. I want you to actually go into your own life, take a look at how you're living, and ask yourself some very difficult and uncomfortable questions. I want you to feel shame. I want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to confront the things that you're running away from and do the work necessary to free you up from being made by others into whatever sick and perverse creature they feel that you should become, so that you can become something more than what people think you're capable of, and you can become more than perhaps what you even thought you were capable of, and you can actually become something and someone and have an identity and actually be a conscious, thinking entity in the brief time before you cease to exist again, much like you did before you were born. It's not that bad. It really isn't. Yeah, it'll bum you out sometimes. It can be depressing, confronting reality and looking at how things actually are, but it's not that bad. It could be a lot worse. You could be waiting around afraid to go outside, agoraphobic, having people tell you have dissociative identity disorder and that you're autistic and that you're depressed and that you have anxiety. They're telling you all this. You don't have these things. Everybody gets depressed. Everybody has severe anxiety sometimes. I go to work in the morning, I'm commuting, I'm surrounded by traffic. People are trying to kill me on the road because they're just psychos behind the wheel. It's anxiety inducing. If I do something on the job and it goes terribly wrong and the air conditioning vents that I hung today fall off and hit somebody in the head, I can get sued. My life will be ruined. It's anxiety inducing. But you know what? At least I'm taking risks and living life and experiencing things before I kick off from this god-awful existence. If all you're doing is hiding underneath your bed in your room at your parents' house, you haven't even started living yet. You're basically just practicing to be dead. And it's kind of a sad and pathetic, and you should definitely feel disgusted and ashamed if that's how you're living. Life is way too short for you not to go out and assume risk and assume responsibilities and start playing the game. Because here's the thing. It's just like the lottery. Your chance of winning the lottery are exactly 0 if you don't buy a ticket. And if you do buy a ticket, your odds improve only slightly. And now it's like 1 in 400 million or something. But you know what? Your odds of winning are no longer 0. And before you can even win a game, you have to do a whole lot of fucking losing. And then to come off of lottery and go into sports for a second before I wrap this up, Michael Jordan, probably one of the most renowned sports players in any sport in the history of sports, because he played a few different ones, golf and baseball in addition to basketball, which he was okay at. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't like the best, but he was pretty good at those. But he was excellent at basketball. And you know what? That guy was not a winner on day one. Do you know how much he lost and how much he fumbled and dropped the ball and double dribbled and messed up and tripped over his own feet? Do you know how many thousands of hours in between games he spent taking free shots on his court at home or whatever, getting better, getting to the point where he could make those shots without even trying when he's in the game? Like, the dude lived his goals. He lived his goals until he realized them. And when he became the most wealthy, like, sponsored athlete in all of history, it was because he had the secret sauce. And the secret sauce wasn't some innate talent. It was just a commitment to just not accepting being anything but the best. It was not acceptable that he remained a loser, because he started off as a loser. Everybody starts off as a loser. If you start playing sports, you're going to lose a lot. No, he's like, I'm not going to be a loser, and the only way I can not be a loser is to play the game and learn to win. So you got to play life and learn to win at it. You got to learn to be a loser. You got to learn to be unemployed. You got to learn to get fired. You got to learn to be a disappointment. You got to learn to fuck up so that you can learn to be gainfully employed, to learn to be financially secured, to learn to be skillful at your job and do a good job, to learn to do things the right way. And it starts with fucking up. And you can't even fuck up until you start. If you don't start, not only are you like never going to be a winner, you're going to be worse than a loser, because at that point you're just a pussy. It's not good. Don't be a pussy. Being a loser is actually better than being a pussy. I don't think you understand this, because if you did, you'd be out there doing what it took. Even though it means you're going to get your ass handed to you. You're going to get made fun of. You're going to be insulted. They're going to mock you. They're going to ridicule you. They're going to give you a hard time. They're probably going to haze you a little bit at your new job site, if they're not a bunch of pussies too. You don't want to hang around a bunch of pussies. And you don't want to be a pussy. You want to be somebody. And this goes for males and females. Like, whether you're a woman and you just insist on being non-traditional and not embracing the only thing good about your existence, which is the ability to create life, and you want to thumb your nose at the gods themselves and basically piss away your natural gifts and not create life, and you want to go be a career slave because you think being a wage slave is somehow freedom, well, okay, fine. Go for it. But at the very least, get in there, take some risks, be aggressive with your negotiations, and stand up for yourself on the job site. Don't make men uncomfortable complaining all the time just because you're not driven enough to keep up with the boys. Nobody held a gun to your head and told you to go not be a wife and not bear children and go get a job instead. You decided that. So why don't you put some actual effort into it and stop pussing around and be better? If you really want to be a career person, you have that right. Stop sucking so hard at it. We don't need an HR department because you're a pussy. And you're not a pussy because you're a woman. You're a pussy because you're a pussy. Men can be pussy too. Men. Please don't be non-traditional and be a stay-at-home wimp. Okay? Don't cuck to your wife's boyfriend. Somebody, like, if you come home and somebody's sleeping with your wife, kick his ass. Like, seriously. Within an inch of his life. Then drag him out front by the yard in a garbage bag. Still alive. Don't do anything like too crazy. And like, let him be collected by the garbage man in the morning. Be like, oh no, let me out of here. Just like, give it to him. And then tell your wife, if it ever happens again, she's in deep shit. Not only will you leave her, she won't get nothing. Put your foot down, dude. Stop being a cuck. And get a job. Like, when you're, like, you guys, like, seriously, come on now. Seriously. I don't want to hear minimum wage is not enough to pay my bills. Minimum wage is for, like, people that have never had a job before. And if you waited till you're in your 20s or 30s to get a proper fucking job, nobody owes you shit. You fucked up. You don't deserve to fucking make demands. So eat your minimum fucking wage and like it. And then earn a couple of promotions. Get a couple raises. They actually do give those out, you know. If you work a place for a year, giving it 110%, you learn to do what you're told, and you do your job better than your coworkers, you'll get raises. You'll get promotions. You could become a manager within 2 to 5 years. Things move very quickly in some of these jobs because they're hurt for people that are willing to go to fucking work and do their goddamn job. So, like, I don't want to hear you crying about minimum wage. You did it to yourself. Nobody fucking owes anybody shit. All you deserve is the same thing we all do as soon as we're born. To die someday after a life of intermittent suffering and happiness. And if you want more happiness than suffering, you better go fucking work more hours. Because it costs a lot of money for happiness. And let me tell you. And I'm not saying that because you need a fancy car to be happy. It's just, look at the cost of food, look at the cost of rent. I mean, it's not rocket science. So, you know, if you want to be happy, go to fuck to work, you know. Be reliable. You know, be the kind of man that the kind of woman you're into would want to be with. If you, as the woman that you would want to be with, wouldn't get with you, then you need to change things about yourself until you are the person the woman you want to be with would get with. And women, be the woman the men you want to get with. If better men aren't getting with you, and you have this high body count, and you're like, why can't I get a good man? It's because you're a garbage can of a human being. Stop getting run through. Tighten up. Maybe lay off of all of the wanton casual encounters for a few years. Yes, a few years. Close your fucking legs for a few years. Go to church. Go join a hiking club. Get yourself cleaned out mentally and physically. I mean, physically really, really good, because ain't nobody trying to get in there after all those dudes done wrecked that place. Seriously. You should be ashamed of yourself, and you should be shamed by everybody around you. You should move to another town, not even think about what's between your legs for a good 2 to 5 years. Like, neglect yourself. It'd be the first and best thing you could possibly do to fix your fucked up head, is to neglect yourself a little bit. Somebody needs to tell you no, and you need to hear it a lot, because you've heard yes too much. It's ruined you. Physically, mentally, spiritually, you're insufferable, you're trash. But the good news is you can untrash yourself by going a few years without spreading those legs. That's all you got to do. Let it close back up. Let the wound heal, instead of ripping it open several times a day. And then when you get done with that, then go back to dating and do it traditionally. And I hope during that time that your legs, your knees have been getting to know each other better. I hope during that time you've been developing a personality, because there's nothing more useless than a woman who endlessly talks but doesn't know a fucking thing about anything. Like, if your man's not willing to sit around and talk with you after, you guys did that together, it probably means there's nobody home, and that's all you are good for, is just a parking garage for dog toys and random men. Be better. For fuck's sake, be better. You should be ashamed of yourself. Did your dad not just, tighten you up every so often? Did he not just, smack some sense into you? I feel bad for you if he didn't, because as terrible as it sounds, a lot of girls, I think, growing up, especially, 13, 14 years old, kind of just need somebody to just give you a 5-finger open-handed tune-up or something, because, you guys are just feral. Somebody just needs to grab you by the scruff and just lock you in your room for a few days with no food until you calm the fuck down. Nobody ever told you to just shut up and sit there? I'm not trying to be rude and misogynist per se, but god damn it, man. Frustrating to deal with these women. What the fuck about you is so awesome that we owe you anything? Just suffering your presence is a chore. Giving you anything is out of the question. Terrible. I'm so glad I'm not single, because you guys are just too much for me. If I was single right now, I wouldn't even try to just change that. I'd just stay single. Jesus Christ. You women, I swear. I'd probably give it if things didn't work out with my girlfriend, and we were to part ways tomorrow, I'd probably wait 5 years and just focus on work and just stay the fuck out of the bar and just go to church or something, get my mind right, and just stay the hell away from women just for a while, because you guys are just cancer. I feel bad for the guys, really. I mean, you should be ashamed of yourself, women. How did they? Who the fuck let you guys get so off the deep end with your bullshit, your histrionics, your prattle? Anyway, that went sideways real quick. I guess this is going on Diary of a Fraud, because this is not positive enough for Rally to me. So, yeah, you can watch this on Diary of a Fraud, because this turned into a bit of a rant. I've had a hard time lately with some women online, and it gets annoying. They ruin everything. Anyways, I'm gonna go inside, take a shower. I don't know if I'm gonna go to bed super early or not, but it's midweek, so I got working still to do.